WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and 1 p.m. in Niamey. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar and around the world on social media and the WADR application. My name is Atia Winimbila.
And I am Veronique Njai. First, our top stories.
Ghana's President John Mahama announces a landmark policy granting visa-free entry to all African citizens starting May 25th.
Effective 25th May 2026, when we commemorate Africa Day, Ghana will commence a free visa regime for all Africans.
Nigerian President Tinubu visits Plateau State following deadly attacks, vowing to end a cycle of violence in the region.
Uncertainty grips Niamey as the official constitutional mandate of ousted President Bazoum expires while he remains in detention.
Mohamed Bazoum remains the legitimate president of Niger as long as he has not resigned and as long as the people of Niger have not democratically elected a new president.
Prosecution seeks 5-year prison sentence for former Guinean Prime Minister Kassarai Fofana over alleged embezzlement and illicit enrichment.
Please stay with us for details of these stories and many more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Newslink begins in Accra, where in a major step towards continental integration, the Ghanaian government is set to grant visa-free access to all African passport holders beginning May 25th to coincide with Africa Day. President John Dramani Mahama unveiled the policy during a state visit by Zimbabwean leader Emmerson Mnangagwa, framing it as a catalyst for tourism and intra-African trade. Nadia Tete has the details.
Government says the new policy will allow African nationals to travel to Ghana without the need for a traditional visa, marking a significant shift in the country's approach to cross-border movement. The visa-free regime will be implemented through a new electronic visa platform set to be rolled out next month, aimed at simplifying entry processes while maintaining border management systems. Here's President Mahama announcing the policy.
I'm also pleased to announce that effective 25th May 2026, when we commemorate Africa Day, Ghana will commence a free visa regime for all Africans. Africans traveling to Ghana will receive their e-visas online free of charge. But between Ghana and Zimbabwe, in laws, we have a visa-free environment already. We can travel to each other's countries without needing a visa. You just hop onto the plane and arrive.
Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa says the initiative forms part of Ghana's broader effort to position itself as a leader in Pan-African integration and cooperation. Officials expect the policy to ease travel across the continent, support business mobility and increase tourism flows, while also strengthening Ghana's role as a hub for trade and investment in Africa. Government further indicates that efforts are underway to secure traditional visa waiver agreements for Ghanaian passport holders, with 23 of such agreements already negotiated since last year. For WDR, Nadia Tete, Accra.
Still on bilateral developments, the Ivorian Minister of African Integration, Adama Dosso, is in Turkey this week to bolster economic relations between Ankara and Abidjan. Minister Dosso has held high-level talks with Turkish private sector actors aimed at increasing investment flows into Côte d'Ivoire's emerging markets. Usman Umar has more in the details of this report by Marcel Ariston-Blay.
The Ivorian Ministry of African Integration and Ivorians Abroad met with the Turkish Vice Minister of Trade. The discussions focused on perspectives for diversifying trade, promoting investment, and strengthening collaboration between the private sectors of the two countries. Both parties also examined opportunities for cooperation in several sectors deemed strategic within a context marked by an increase in trade between Ankara and Abidjan. Adams Dosso also held discussions with officials from the Turkey Côte d'Ivoire Business Council, This is a platform dedicated to the promotion of economic relations between the two countries. These meetings allowed for exchanges with Turkish economic operators on investment opportunities in Côte d'Ivoire and on the conditions for strengthening the presence of Turkish companies in key sectors. This Ivorian visit to Turkey is part of the consolidation of strategic economic partnership with Turkey to promote Côte d'Ivoire preferred destination for foreign investment. Note that Ankara is increasingly present in West Africa. It cooperates with several countries and stakeholders in various fields such as trade, construction, security, and energy.
Usman Umar with those details in the report by Marcel Ariston Blay. For matters of bilateral development, let's now talk security, because Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has visited Jos in Plateau State to assess the security situation firsthand following a series of violent attacks that claimed dozens of lives. The president's visit is aimed at reassuring residents and reinforcing the federal government's commitment to preventing further bloodshed in the Middle Belt region. WADR's correspondent Yechenu Sasetu has the details.
President Tinubu's visit to Jos is part of efforts to commiserate with victims and demonstrate the federal government's commitment to restoring peace in Plateau State. The visit follows the recent attack in Jos North local government area, prompting national outrage and urgent calls for action. During the visit, the president assured residents that the federal government would take decisive steps to prevent a recurrence of such violence, stressing that the safety of lives and property remains a top priority.
I promise you that this experience will not repeat itself. Governor, you and I were elected on a promise of peace and prosperity, not to comfort and create widows and widowers.
He also directed security agencies to intensify efforts in tracking down the perpetrators and strengthening security across affected communities.
I thank the men and women of the armed forces, particularly the police, for what they are doing and what they are about to do. You must unearth and find the killers.
The visit comes after earlier high-level consultations with security chiefs and Plateau State Governor Caleb Mutfwang as part of a coordinated response to the crisis. Authorities say increased deployments and surveillance are ongoing, including the installation of 5,000 cameras as part of broader efforts to restore calm and rebuild confidence among residents. For WADR, Yechenu Sasetu reporting.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
And now let's turn to Niger, where the political atmosphere is tense as the 5-year constitutional mandate of ousted President Mohamed Bazoum expired on Thursday. Despite nearly 3 years in junta custody and immense pressure to resign, Bazoum has refused to step down, leaving the military authorities with a diplomatic dilemma regarding his continued detention. Abdullahi Hassan brings us details in this report by Yakuba Habibullah.
Since the July 2023 coup, Mohamed Bazoum and his wife have been held by the military in an undisclosed location. His last public appearance was nearly 3 years ago, shortly after his arrest during an ECOWAS mediation mission in Niamey. Despite his term officially expiring this week, his supporters maintain that he remains the only legitimate president of Niger until new elections are held and a successor is democratically elected. He remains the president in the eyes of the law, says Tahiru Garba, a member of the G25, a movement advocating for Bazoum's immediate release.
Mohamed
Bazoum remains the legitimate president of Niger as long as he has not resigned and as long as the people of Niger have not democratically elected a new president. To this day, as I speak to you, everyone knows that Mohamed Bazoum has not tendered his resignation.
Conversely, supporters of the military government argue that the Bazoum era is over. They insist his fate now rests solely with the judiciary as he faces charges of high treason. Pro-junta groups have dismissed international calls for his release, arguing that he must face Nigerian justice. Bana Ibrahim, a member of the CCR, Niger's transitional parliament echoes this sentiment.
In Niger, we allow ourselves to be given injunctions, ignoring that the executive, the government they speak of, has no influence over the judicial calendar and cannot give injunction to judges. So, this is a serious violation of the sovereignty of a state, Niger in particular.
The ongoing detention remains a point of international friction. Beyond African intellectuals and civil society, bodies including ECOWAS, the African Union and the European Parliament have repeatedly called for Bazoum's unconditional release and the restoration of constitutional order in Niger.
There was a report voiced by Abdullahi Hassan from our Niger correspondent Yakuba Habibulai. Now we head to Guinea, and the appeal trial of former Prime Minister Ibrahima Kassore Fofana has reached a turning point. Prosecutors who are before the Specialized Anti-Corruption Court are moving to uphold a 5-year prison sentence for embezzlement and illicit enrichment, while the defense continues to argue for an acquittal based on procedural flaws. Augustine Coley has the details in this report.
During the hearing, the Special Prosecutor's Office requested the court to uphold all provisions of the lower court's conviction. Additionally, the state has requested 20 billion Guinean francs in damages, characterizing the appeal as abusive. Several party lawyers maintained that, as in the first trial, the former Prime Minister failed to justify the use of 15 billion Guinean francs intended for the Mamri project, which he managed. They further alleged that Fofana deposited significant sums across multiple bank accounts. The prosecution team highlighted a stark discrepancy between Fofana's estimated monthly salary of 15 million Guinean francs and the substantial balances found in his accounts, presenting this as clear evidence of illicit enrichment. Conversely, the defense team called for a total reversal of the judgment. They contested the State Inspector General's report, labeling it irregular and biased. Furthermore, they raised concerns regarding their client's deteriorating health, arguing that he is unfit for prolonged detention. Following the conclusion of oral arguments, the court announced that the final verdict in the appeal of Ibrahima Kassore Fofana will be delivered on April 30.
That was Augustine Coley giving us the details of the report by our correspondent, Cherno Alpha Ibrahima Balde from Conakry.
Still on legal matters in Monrovia, a 72-year-old economist, Samuel Jackson, has been formally charged and sent to prison in connection with the death of his South African wife, Toni Jackson. The Liberia National Police say that while a final autopsy is pending, forensic evidence reveals a harrowing attack, possibly on the victim. Now he faces charges of manslaughter, negligent homicide, and aggravated assault. Investigators believed a forceful impact caused the victim to fall backward, resulting in fatal hemorrhaging. The police report further points to a troubling pattern of prior domestic violence and alleges criminal negligence. According to authorities, Mrs. Jackson, who had a known medical condition, was left alone in a locked environment despite requiring constant care.
And now we head to the Gambia, where the National Assembly Authority is holding a 3-day strategic retreat in Banjul to sharpen the legislative focus on oversight and institutional effectiveness. The meeting, which began on Thursday, comes at a time of heightened public scrutiny over the accountability of elected representatives in the country. From Banjul, Sangdanot Mendy reports.
The retreat, chaired by Speaker Fabakary Tombong Jatta, brings together the top leadership of the National Assembly at a time when the institution is pursuing reforms aimed at improving efficiency, transparency, and public trust. Over the next days, members will set priorities for the upcoming sittings, assess past performance, and track progress on the Assembly's 2025 to 2029 strategic plan. Opening the retreat, Speaker Jatta described the gathering as a critical moment to recalibrate the Assembly's administrative machinery. He stressed the need for a professional and responsive parliamentary service capable of meeting the demands of modern governance.
It's our solemn duty to ensure that the administrative machinery supporting our constitutional functions, the National Assembly Service, is robust, professionalized, and fully equipped to meet the evolving demands of our governance architecture.
The clerk of the National Assembly, Khalifa M. Bay, says the retreat also provides an opportunity to scrutinize and validate key administrative frameworks developed in the recent months. He notes that without clear legal and institutional foundation, reform efforts risk losing direction.
Your role in providing strategic direction and supervision remains the cornerstone of our institutional integrity. These reforms can only attain legitimacy and institutional force through your technical scrutiny and formal ratification.
By the close of the retreat, the authority is expected to adopt a functional review and job analysis report alongside revised schemes of service. These measures are aimed at redefining rules, strengthening accountability, and setting new standards for parliamentary administrations. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdona Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
And you're still listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal, and around the world across social media and on the WADR application. Here's a reminder of our top stories.
Ghanaian President Mahama announces a landmark policy granting visa-free entry to all African citizens starting May 25th.
In Nigeria, President Tinubu visits Plateau State following a deadly attack. He vows to end the cycle of violence in the region.
Uncertainty grips Niamey as the official constitutional mandate of ousted President Bazoum expires while he remains in detention.
And prosecution seeks 5-year prison sentence for former Guinean Prime Minister Kasori Fofana over alleged embezzlement and illicit enrichment.
Still ahead in the news, we have guest interview and sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thank you for staying with us. We are now in Senegal, where a major drug trafficking network has been dismantled by the Brigade of Research and Surveillance of Dakar. The operation took place on March 31st, 2026, targeting a distribution network of cannabis operating between Charoy, Kundun, and Gejawai. Tankule Janko completes the story.
According to a police statement, the intervention followed intelligence reporting an imminent delivery in the Dakar suburbs. A suspect vehicle was spotted in Charoy-Solmer near the city hall. Security forces then deployed a surveillance operation combining physical tracking and drone monitoring, allowing them to follow the suspect's movements in real time. The statement reveals that around 8:30 p.m., officers arrested the driver and the main suspect as they attempted to take possession of the vehicle. During the search operations, the officers seized 254 kilograms of cannabis packaged in several bundles in the vehicle. Investigations later extended to Kunun, where a woman believed to be awaiting part of the shipment was apprehended. Following a search of her home, officers discovered jewelry and 1,500,000 CFA francs. In Gejawai at City Alionso, a search of the main suspect's residence uncovered 3 million CFA francs, along with administrative documents, including a land-related record. The 3 suspects are now in police custody with legal counsel. They face charges including criminal association, drug possession and trafficking, complicity and money laundering. Authorities say investigations are ongoing to uncover more illicit financial activities in the country.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
For our guest interview today, we focus on Nigeria, particularly Jos Plateau State, where recent attacks claimed dozens of lives. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu visited the area on Thursday to assess the security situation firsthand. The president also made some promises to end the frequent wave of attacks in the statement. But realistic are those promises given the state of insecurity in Nigeria? Our guest is Rocha Golmot, a public affairs analyst in Nigeria. He shares his analysis of the situation.
Yeah, I think it is timely. And as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, there will be no one fitting to comfort the people as the president. So he came to speak with key stakeholders. And that is why the entirety of selected former governors, former National Assembly members, and even serving National Assembly members, the chairman of the ruling party, All Progressive Congress, who happens to come from Plateau, also attended. So I think it was a needed time for reflection.
What could be the major problem in Jos, because this recent incident is not the first of its kind?
Yes, if you picked up the line of His Excellency John David Jang, who is a retired Brigadier General in the military, he's a former governor, not the immediate past, spoke very frankly to the president. Yes, this thing is not just something that is happening now to this government. It has happened when Governor Joshua Chibidare was governor from 1999 to 2003. It happened with even His Excellency John David Jang, who also took over from Dare, and happened at the reign of Governor Simon Bakola Long, who is now senator in the National Assembly, and it's happening now with His Excellency Barrister Caleb Manasseh Mutfan. So I think far from it, it will not be a matter of failure of governance. I think there are a selected few that are interested in destabilizing the state for reasons best known to them. But I think one can also suspect political undertones in this manner, because we have seen politics bells are beginning to ring, and politicians are speaking hate languages here and there, and I think that would not be far-fetched. And don't also forget that we also have the issues of the farmers' herders clash, and the rains just dropped. Fortunately, that Sunday was all day. There was long rains, and that would not be out of it too. That they want our people scared so that they don't go to farms.
What is the state of security in Plateau State? Is it because of limited security manpower, or they are overwhelmed by maybe bandits or terrorists?
You've gotten it very right. It is about the insufficiency of the security architecture to man the country and indeed to man the state. Fortunately, His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, started a discussion of the state policing, and some of us have advocated that for years and years, and thank God this discussion cannot come any better than now. So truly, the police is understaffed. The military is overwhelmed with what is happening in the northeastern part of the country, and even all around the country, checkpoints here and there. So it's stretched to the limit that they cannot be able to do rapid response in the real sense of the words rapid response.
Why in Jos on yesterday? Why in Jos on Thursday? President Tinubu promised the installation of 5,000 CC cameras in Jos Plateau State. What about other local government areas? And as a public affairs analyst, do you think this will, in fact, help to solve the problem?
Yes, it will. It is it's better than nothing at all. It might not be sufficient, but I think it is a niche in time, which it will help in terms of in terms of getting information, and it is better they understand the psyche, the runnings of these criminals, so that they can prevent this kind of things than to put us in a position where it has already happened, then we'll begin to. So I think this will provide the security apparatus with the necessary information needed to tackle some of these things before it does happen.
You heard there Rocha Galmot. He's a public affairs analyst in Nigeria.
And now we take the sports news, and Sierra Leone Football Association has parted ways with head coach Mohamed Kaloun of the Leon Stars with immediate effect. The decision follows what the FA described as a review of the team's technical and strategic direction. Despite the change, there is a boost for the national side as Sierra Leone climbed to 119th in the latest FIFA ranking after their outing in Azerbaijan. The Leon Stars will now look to build momentum ahead of the 2027 AFCON qualifiers later this year.
In Nigeria, the Football Federation has appointed Akeem Busari as the new head coach of the under-17 women's team, the Flamingos. He replaces Bankole Oluwokere, who led the team to a historic bronze medal in the 2022 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. Busari now takes charge as the Flamingos begin preparations for the 2026 World Cup qualifiers, with key fixtures coming up against either Niger or Guinea.
And finally, for sports news, we head to Cote d'Ivoire, and the Ivorian Football Federation has issued a lifetime ban to referee Brouet Bassège after finding him guilty of serious corruption. According to the federation, the referee approached club officials promising favorable results in exchange for money and threatening defeats if these demands were not met. The case was exposed by Real FC, whose Secretary General submitted an audio recording that provided clear evidence of attempted blackmail. In response, the Federation imposed a permanent ban. Authorities say the decision is aimed at restoring integrity and sending a clear message that corruption will not be tolerated in Ivorian football.
And that's how we end today's edition, the second edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maldo Diouf for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Atiewin Imbila.
And I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your